Now, we'll start with the first point, that is the development of the occlusion. As I told you, development of a normal occlusion in permanent dentition is totally dependent how the occlusion is in the primary and mixed dentition. Okay? So first, I will start with the how occlusion appear, how it develops, and how it is in the at the primary stage. In primary dentition, occlusion can be studied under these five headings. That is the eruption chronology of the teeth, how can say schedule of the tooth eruption of the primary teeth, arch form, contact relationships with each other, interdental spacing, and primary molar relationship. Primary molar relationship of maxillary and mandibular. Now, the first one is the eruption chronology. Now, we are very much fortunate in this case that all our teeth, almost all teeth, especially in the primary as well as the permanent dentition, they usually stick to their schedule. There is very little variation in the eruption schedule of the teeth. But still, the eruption chronology can be affected by majority of the factors. The two main factors are the first one that attributes to almost 70% of its effect on the eruption pattern is the hereditary. Now, which factors will come under this? Now, for example, in some families, the jaw size is itself smaller, whereas in some families, the jaw size would be normal, but the teeth size would be larger. Okay, so what this creates, this hereditary factors, they will account for the eruption chronology in almost 70% of the cases. There are then secondary factors which account for 30% of the variations which can occur in the chronology. Now, what are these environmental factors? In environmental factors, basically the most important factor is the birth weight of that particular kid. It has been proven by many studies that kids who are usually heavier, the teeth in those kids, they erupt earlier. Earlier the teeth are erupting, it is better for getting a proper occlusion. Late the teeth are erupting, it will usually create problems in the future occlusion. Future development of the occlusion. Okay. Any disturbance in this particular eruption sequence or failure of any particular teeth is going to create malocclusion. But again, fortunately, it is very rare to see failure of eruption in case of the decidual dentition. Even whenever the schedule gets altered in the decidual dentition, it is usually seen only in a very severe cases only. Next is the arch form. Now, arch form is very important. Now, if you see the arch form or the shape of the jaws is basically determined by the nasal bone and the alveolar. Okay. It is usually horseshoe shaped. The maxillary arch is always slightly larger than the mandibular arch. I gave you the reason because so that whenever the mandible is moving and striking the maxilla, so that it should get stuck or some sort of impediment to move out from the once it contacts the maxilla. Now, the form and the width of this entire arches, they are completely formed by the age of say 9 months, which is at the same time when the eruption of the teeth, of the primary teeth will begin. Okay? Now, as this primary teeth keep on erupting, this particular jaws, they go on growing, especially the growth is in the anterior posterior direction. The most prominent growth is seen in the posterior part because this is the area where the newer teeth are going to be added. Okay. Now this is just a comparison. On your left side is the primary dentition, on your right is the permanent dentition. Just see the shape is overall it is same. The maxillary jaw is larger than the mandible, but the overall appearance of the arches in the primary as well as the permanent dentition is almost similar. Now, contact relationship. Now, contact relationship, this term means that whenever the person bites, how the lower teeth contact the upper teeth. Now, normally in occlusion, each tooth contacts with two opposing teeth. It is applicable for both maxillary as well as mandibular teeth. Each tooth will contact with the two teeth in the opposing arch. Exceptions are the maxillary central incisors and the maxillary second molars. Because there is no teeth behind them, so they usually contact only a single tooth in the opposing arch. Okay. Now, how is the normal contact or a favored contact relationship in the primary dentition? In primary dentition, when the mesolingual cusp of maxillary molar will occlude with the central fossa of the mandibular molar, that is considered as a favorable position, because in future that is going to get converted into the Engel's class 1 relationship, which is considered as the most favored type of occlusion for the permanent teeth. Okay. Now, always remember that the occlusal contacts in primary dentition are never stable as they are in the permanent dentition. The reason is the jaws are growing at a different rate. The maxillary jaw usually grows at a slightly slower rate as compared to the mandibular jaw. Plus, the teeth, the primary teeth, the enamel, as you must have seen in the previous lectures, the primary teeth, the enamel of them is not that properly mineralized and not as thick as compared to that of the permanent dentition. That is why they get attrited very fast. That is why it's difficult to maintain a perfect contact relationship as you will see in the permanent dentition. You can say that in primary dentition, usually it is just one flat surface contacting the other flat surface. On the other hand, in case of the permanent dentition, usually it is a cusp fossa pattern. Okay. Now, you can see in this particular picture, see that the occlusion there is not so prominent as you can see here. See this particular area. The occlusion, the teeth, they have many spaces in between them. I'm not talking about this interdental spaces. I'm talking about the spaces just below the contact points of the tooth. Okay. Now, there are certain factors which affect this contact relationship between the upper and lower teeth in primary dentition. The first important factor is the positioning of the tooth gum. How the tooth gum is positioned during the development is very important. If the tooth germs are not positioned in a way which is going to help them in eruption in their eruption pathway, then this teeth won't erupt into their normal position, thus hampering the contact relationship they are going to develop with the opposing tooth. Then eruption time, as we saw that eruption time and position is again important. If the tooth doesn't erupt at its given time, either if it erupts earlier or late, it is going to create problem. If it is erupting earlier, it will be taking up space for the which was meant for the adjacent teeth. If it is erupting late, then the adjacent teeth might encroach in its space. Okay. Then development of the condyle, as such, development of the condyle has relatively lesser amount of effect on the occlusion in primary dentition. It has more profound effect in the permanent dentition. The reason is condyle doesn't develop to that proportion in the primary dentition age. It usually, you will see the very fast development in the condyle at the age group of 18 to 21 years. Okay. Then, morphology of the individual teeth, as we saw that in case of the primary teeth, the cusp, inclines, fossa ridges, all of them, they are not as prominent as you see in the permanent dentition. That is why they are not going to completely bound with each other, as you can see in case of the permanent dentition. Then lastly, the neuromuscular control. As it is very much clear that in younger kids, it is difficult for them to control the mandibular movement completely. So that is another reason that the contact relationship in case of the primary dentition are not that stable. Okay. This is just a pattern which tooth interacts with the opposing tooth. So I'm not going to go into details about that because it's just simple. Remember that every tooth interacts with two teeth in the opposing dentition. The only exception being the maxillary central and the primary molar, maxillary second molar. Okay. This is how they are going to. Now this is when you will see it from the anterior aspect, and this is when you will see the contact relationship from the lateral aspect. Now this is an occlusal overlap pattern. How now the dotted lines indicate the maxillary teeth, whereas the lower teeth which are shown, they are mandibular teeth. This is a picture which is showing how the maxillary teeth are going to occlude with that of the mandibular teeth. Now, next is interdental space. Now, this particular part is very, very commonly asked SQ on the interdental spaces. Now, interdental spacing, normally permanent dentition, it is considered rather pathological. But in case of primary dentition, interdental spacing is desirable. Okay? This interdental spacing is, as the name, interdental means the space present between the two adjacent teeth. Normally, as I told you, in permanent dentition, the teeth are very closely approximate with each other, so there is no space. But in case of the deciduous dentition, the teeth are not that closely approximate with each other. The reason being, the jaws keep on growing in anterior-posterior direction at a very rapid rate. Because of that, it moves the teeth away from each other, creating spaces between them, especially the space between the central incisors, which is referred as the diastema. Okay. Now, why this interdental spacing is important? This interdental spacing is important because it helps the permanent teeth to erupt in their normal and desired and uncrowded position. Always remember that permanent teeth, they are much larger in size as compared to that of the deciduous teeth, except for the premolars. All other permanent teeth are larger than their deciduous counterparts. So they are going to need more space as compared to the deciduous teeth. Okay. So for this reason, the spacing is, this extra space which is present between the two teeth is utilized to accommodate that larger size of the permanent teeth. Okay. If there is no spacing present in the deciduous dentition, usually that is an indication that that particular person in future will have a crowded occlusion in case when the permanent teeth erupt. Okay. You can see this particular spaces between the teeth. This is what we call as interdental spacing. Everywhere it is there. Now this particular space is called as primate space. I will come to that point later. Now primary molar relationship. Now primary molar relationship is how the molar mandible occludes with the maxilla. How we now usually this occlusion pattern we decide it upon the relationship based between the molars. This is applicable to the permanent as well as the primary dentition. So how the mandibular first molar occludes with the maxillary second molar. Okay. Maxillary first molar. Now, in this primary molar shape, now in case of the primary dentition, we will just, we rather than taking the first molars, we take into account the second molar. So, we say that the mandibular second molar, the distal surface of the mandibular second molar and the distal surface of the maxillary second molar, how it is related to each other. Remember that mesodistal dimension of mandibular molars, even in case of primary as well as the deciduous dentition, they are larger as compared to the maxillary molars. Okay, but still that there is, in case of the primary dentition, the most favored type of molar relationship is, we call it as the flush terminal plane. What is this flush terminal plane? The first terminal plane is, we just draw one line on from the distal aspect of the maxillary molar to the distal aspect of the mandibular second molar. If it is straight, then it is called as flush terminal plane. Okay. Now, if this particular line has a step in a distal direction, step which is distally directed, then it is called as distal step. If it has a step which is mesially directed, then it is called as a mesial step. Now, why this relationship is important? Now, as I told you, the most desired relationship is the how it is seen in this case. That is the flush terminal plane. Why? Because the flush terminal plane usually will get transformed into the class 1 type of molar relationship in permanent dentition, whereas the distal step will result into the class 2 and the mesial step will result into the class 3 molar relationship. The later two are not that considered as normal because functionally as well as aesthetically they will hamper the appearance of the patient. So the most favored relationship is that of the flush terminal plane because it usually will get transformed itself into the type 1 occlusion. I can clearly see that type 1 occlusion means the mesiobuccal cusp of the maxillary molar getting fitted into that of the central groove of the mandibular molar. You can see that the difference between flush terminal plane class 1, distal step class 2, mesial state class 3. Okay? Now, another SAQ which is asked on this particular chapter is the primate, simian, or anthropoid spaces. Now, what are these? Primate spaces means those seen in monkeys and similar species, subhuman species. These are the spaces which are seen in relation to the canine. Okay. Now, why they are seen in those species? If you see this subhuman species, usually they have a very large canine. So these spaces, they are there to accommodate this larger canine, either of the maxillary or of the mandibular jaw. So these spaces are present. In case of the maxillary jaw, they are anterior to the canine, as you see here. In case of the mandibular jaw, they are posterior to the canine. Okay. So these spaces. Even though in humans we are not having that long canine, but still these particular spaces have persisted. In evolution, we are not yet lost them. Okay. So now what is the importance of this particular space? This primate space, even in humans, they are very important because they aid in the early mesial shift. Early mesial shift. Now, what is that term? I will be discussing about that just after this. In this early mesial shift, till that point, just remember that early mesial shift helps our dentition to develop the class 1 relationship. As you saw that it is the most favorable relationship to develop in case of the occlusion. Okay. Now, what is this early mesial shift? Early mesial shift is seen only in those persons who have interdental spacing in their primary dentition. Okay. Now, in this particular thing, what happens, you can clearly see in this schematic diagram that there are so many spaces, especially the most important are these primate spaces. Okay. Now, what happens in the early mesial shift is this molar, especially when this permanent mandibular molar erupt. Now, always remember that the mandibular teeth usually erupt earlier as compared to that of the maxillary teeth. So, when this permanent mandibular teeth erupt, it will move in a mesial direction. It pushes the teeth which are anterior to it so that whatever this space was there, it gets closed. Because of this, what happens is, when the maxillary teeth, which will erupt after the mandibular teeth, when it will erupt directly into the position where its mesiobuccal cusp will get aligned with the central fossa of the mandible. This is very important because it is going to develop the class 1 molar relationship.